Tomas Sandell heads the European Coalition for Israel. That organization promotes closer ties between Israel and the European Union and fights anti-Semitism in Europe and at the UN. I spoke with Sandell recently here in Jerusalem about some of the challenges that Israel is facing. Tomas Sandell, welcome to Jerusalem Dateline.
Thank you.
Europe is kind of a hostile place sometimes for Israel. You work on Israel's behalf. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing in Europe on behalf of Israel?
A lot of the foreign policy power is concentrated to Brussels, and by being there on the ground, by engaging with the policymakers, presenting them with facts, issue briefs, and also offering alternative scenarios that they don't get from anyone else.
Now, what would you say is the biggest threat facing Israel coming from Europe?
I think there are a number of different threats. One is very obvious when we look at the demographics, the migration crisis, the threat of radical Islam. But apart from that, there's something which I sometimes call sophisticated anti-Semitism, which comes from corners of society where they try to be champions of human rights, but they have a very strange understanding of human rights. So they would say circumcisions of Jewish babies is against the rights of a baby, and also when it comes to kosher slaughter, that this is against the rights of animals. So everyone else except for the Jewish people seem to have human rights in Europe.
The boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, Europe was kind of a leader in that. Where is that heading now? Is it advancing? Is it being pushed back?
I think the good news is that there are some major pushbacks. If you look at the legal aspects, interesting, the High Court of France have decided and determined that this is illegal. It's against international trade law. It's against international law. You also have more political declaration, like the former British government under David Cameron, who came out with this statement to say that any municipality that want to boycott Israel will have to face the consequences and also be targeted for sanctions from the government in London. Nevertheless, having said that, there is a strong undercurrent in Europe. And when we spoke with the Prime Minister, I explained and I said, listen, this is a small minority, but it's a vocal minority, and it's a very well-funded minority, and funded also with EU tax money. This is also why we started this European Coalition for Israel, because we felt at that time that there were many Christians who got the Israel message, but mostly it stayed within the four walls of the church. And as Europeans, we have to look back to what happened in the 1930s and realize that Europe and Germany was much more Christian at that time, and still the greatest crime against the Jewish people could happen in a Christian environment. So we say that it's not even a matter of how many we are, but if there is a group of people who dare to go to the places which are the tough places, politically, spiritually, like Brussels, like New York, like other European capitals, this is where we are needed.
We've seen in the Middle East in the last couple of years, with the rise of ISIS, countries like Egypt, Saudi Arabia, suddenly kind of appreciating Israel and asking Israel for help. I wondered if that might also be something that might work in Israel's favor in Europe.
So behind the scenes we see this very positive development. But on the other hand, and I'm again quoting the Prime Minister, who said that the world is changing dramatically, and Israel has new friends in Asia, in Latin America, in Africa. Why is it that what we used to consider our closest friends are still stabbing us in the back? And there is this little clique, especially in Brussels, in these circles, who for some reason are very obsessed with Israel, very obsessed with fixing the Middle East, but who don't really care what happens in the wider region, don't care about the Christians who are being slaughtered. We have seen this as an educational challenge for us, actually to bring these facts to the leaders in a way that they can understand. So in 2010, together with CBN, we were in San Remo to commemorate the 90th anniversary of the San Remo resolution, which paved the way for the creation of the Jewish state. And most people today have never heard of San Remo. They have not heard about the Mandate for Palestine. And as I said, their sense of history starts in 1967, when suddenly these Israelis came and took all the land that you know, of the Palestinians. Or even their concept of what happened in 1948 is very distorted, it's very politicized. I always say that each time we go into a meeting, we always come out and having achieved something, because the facts are on our side. It's that simple.